back to Just Fantasy Baseball podcast. Today we have Reese White, and if you all don't know Reese, he has been doing some of the dynasty fantasy work for us at Just Baseball. Reese, tell the people what else you do.
So I started the week before this comes out. I started doing the Dynasty mailbag because I thought there was a space that Just Baseball could really break into, just being able to get people's questions and answer them. Let's see, what else have I done? I did a bunch of the stuff for spring training, like prospects to watch and that. And yeah, this Dynasty mailbag is like a big one. It's just a really fun article. I mean, I pretty much answer any question. Like it ranges from like, what do you do with Jared Kelenic to someone wanted my thoughts on the Adam LaRoche retirement for some reason. So it's really up to whatever people want me to talk about, and we can go in any sort of direction. It doesn't have to be super serious, but it can also be like we can get into any sort of dynasty topic, any redraft, any trades, because trade season is going to start popping up here soon because teams are going to start to realize that they're behind in the roto standings, and then they're going to have to adjust accordingly, go chase stats. So yeah, feel free after you listen to this I'll put it out on Twitter, but you can DM me, you can email me, you can do whatever you want. However, you can write me a letter if you want, and I'll find a way to get it in the mailbag.
Reese, I love the way that you write because I feel like we have a similar writing style in one sense that we like to add some wit and some humor to it at times. And the Adam LaRoche retirement story, if you don't know that, go to the Dynasty mailbag. It's buying or selling, and there's Jared Kelenic on the cover there. You can find it at justbaseball.com. And read that story about Adam LaRoche. It's pretty funny. But today's episode, we will run through some streaming options. We're going to run through some waiver wire pickups, and we're going to run through some Dynasty League talk. And it may be a little bit quicker episode this time. Those who don't know, Reese lives in California. So it's 6 a.m. his time Sunday morning. We are recording 9 a.m. Eastern, my time in Kentucky. So I don't want to keep Reese up too long here, but so let's dive into the waiver wire options. One name that, and feel free to talk about the dynasty value of any of these players as well. Jack Suwinski from the Pittsburgh Pirates, owned in only 5% of leagues. Depending on where you look, it's even less than that. And I want to bring him up mostly for deeper league options at this point, but 244, 357, 634 / 5 home runs. And he's a player who showed some pop last year. And, the Pirates team wasn't that great, and he struck out a lot, and he still does have swing and miss concerns. But a BABIP of 208 with an expected batting average of 274. I'm not reading too much into those expected stats this early in the season, but I just want to mention it so that people understand, okay, maybe he's a little bit unlucky to start the season, already has 5 home runs. Average exit velocity is already up to 95 miles per hour, which is awesome to see. 24% barrel rate, 55% hard hit rate. Why do I bring up Jack Suwinski? Is mostly because deeper leagues, I think he's rosterable right away. And what we've seen from the advanced, batted ball data is he's hitting the ball well, which is step one, especially a player like him who relies on power. And the Pirates team, they're looking pretty damn good. I'm not saying that they're playoff bound. They're looking like an improved team. I like Jack Suwinski. Reese, any thoughts on Suwinski?
Yeah, he's sneakily younger than I think you'd realize. He's only 24 years old. He's one of these guys that he was like a non-prospect for a long time. So you would think that he's like almost like 26, 27, 28. He's 24. So there's definitely some dynasty value in there. And I think one of the big things for him that really helps you out is, he strikes out a little bit. Like in the majors, his career strikeout rate is above 30.6, which is kind of alarming. But also he offsets that by walking a lot. He's always been, even in the minors, he was always hovering around 10% walk rate, which is something you definitely want to see. He's going to hit the ball really hard. I think we're witnessing like a breakout. Like last year was really good, but he was on the Pirates. The Pirates team last year was kind of just like they legally had to put out a roster. It seems like this year they're not a great team. Unfortunately, O'Neal Cruz got hurt, which is very unfortunate. But it seems like the rest of the team just looks like, they actually have a coherent plan and want to start, actually not being the worst team in baseball. So I definitely been enjoying the Pirates. I've been watching a lot of them. The Pirates fans are great on Twitter. And I really like Jack Swinski. I think he's definitely in deeper leagues, definitely viable, and especially I think there's a lot of dynasty value here. You're not going to get a lot of stolen bases, but I mean, if he keeps up the current rate that he's at, a home run every 3 games, which I don't think he will, but you never know these days. That could be exciting, and in the new stolen base environment, he could pop 5 to 10. So I'm definitely excited about Jack Swinski.
A player that last year became a fantasy option for some. The Pirates had so many outfielders that were kind of in the same build, like guys who needed opportunities coming up from AAA. This year, a little bit less of that. And I think he has a better chance of stealing everyday roles going forward than he did last year. And just to the Pirates' credit, they filled out their lineup with vets who are not terrible, right? Chi Manchu and Carlos Santana, Connor Joe, like pretty decent overall players. And even Connor Joe's a guy who's probably rosterable in some leagues, depending on how deep it is with positional flexibility. I don't think the Pirates suck, which is something I've not said in a very long time. I wanted to talk about some Tampa Bay Rays players. We all know from a fantasy perspective, Rays players can be tough to roster. The reason why is because few of them tend to play every single day. So if you're in a league, especially where you can't make roster moves daily, it's kind of difficult to justify rostering some of these players. But man, it's just standing out. Like these players are just sitting on the waiver wire. Taylor Walls, around 22%. That number keeps jumping. Owned 22% of leagues. That number is going up and up. Harold Ramirez, 17% owned, and Josh Lowe, 40% owned. Walls is the player here with a ton of positional flexibility, and he's playing well. Keep in mind, tiny sample size to begin the year. I never saw Taylor Walls like as a prospect being anything more than just like kind of a fill-in guy, maybe a bench role. I never really saw him as like a fantasy option, but here we are, 333, 440, 667 to start the year, 3 home runs. Don't expect him to be a power hitter. I expect him to come back down to life, but are we buying anything from the Taylor Walls hot start?
I definitely buy a little bit into it. Like you said, there's a lot of positional versatility. He's someone he has second base, shortstop, and third base eligibility, depending on the eligibility of your leagues. I mean, he's played 7 games at third, 6 games at second, and 2 games at short. So he's definitely going to bounce around a lot, which is valuable, even as like your bench player in fantasy. He's hitting probably better than he's ever hit in his entire career. Like even in the minors, he wasn't exactly known for hitting the ball very hard or making a bunch of contact, but he's definitely hitting the ball well. I mean, if you look at certain projection systems, he's almost there to his season tally. Like the bat projected him for 5 home runs this season. He's at 3 already. I mean, that's pretty impressive for him. And I think we're witnessing a little breakout. But like you said, the hard thing about Rays players is that you have to understand they're not going to play. Like Brandon Lau, he has like a sub 700 OPS against lefties, which for a lot of guys and a lot of other teams, they'd play. But the Rays just don't do that. They decide that they're going to get the best lineup out there every single chance they can because they need to play those tiny little margins. So even like a guy who we all draft pretty highly in Brandon Lau doesn't play against lefties. So it's definitely something that it's frustrating. But I mean, from a real life baseball perspective, you can understand because they have so many guys. They just have it seems like they have like 40 guys in their 26-man roster who can come up and play for almost any other team.
Taylor Walls, switch hitter. So he might actually, if he keeps hitting well, like there would be less of that, less of the platoon option for him. Now, of course, they may want to get Paredes in at third base or something, or they play so many lineup games. Just know any player that you pick up from the Rays, you will be frustrated at times with playing time. Next player, Harold Ramirez, 382, 443, 691 slash 4 home runs. 4 home runs from Harold Ramirez. We all know him as a batter. The past couple of years, good contact bat, puts the ball in play, plays against lefties quite a bit. May have lucked into some power, but is he going to play enough to really be an option in fantasy? Now, he does have first base outfield eligibility, DH eligibility as well for some leagues that work that way. So, any thoughts on Harold Ramirez?
I'm just surprised he's playing as much against
Yeah.
but just this Rays team, like they're really good. They're really like I feel like there's something special there. I mean, last night, I mean, just not to get on too much of a tangent, I mean, the White Sox, who do some of the dumbest things you'll see on a baseball field, but they decided to walk Wander Franco to go attack Randy Rosarina, which was interesting. But yeah, this team is just that. It just seems like everybody's producing. Harold Ramirez is looking like the best version of Harold Ramirez, and I'm all here for it. I have him in like a 30-team league, so I'm picking and choosing my spots with him. But I think outside of deeper leagues, I'm not really too like buying into Harold Ramirez right now.
Yeah, neither am I. I think he's a fine option if the way that I see him is, it's Friday afternoon, you're down a certain amount of points or categories you're trying to fill in, and there's two lefties he's facing this weekend. Something like that. Like if you can pick him up for short stints, I like that move. Um, he doesn't offer a ton of upside in my opinion. But the thing about all these race players is they're scoring a million runs. If you're in a league and you're falling behind in the runs category, maybe you can just see who the Rays are playing that weekend and scoop up whoever you think's the best option because they're going to get a couple of runs. It seems like the last Rays player, Josh Lowell, 345, 390, 691 slash, 4 home runs, 4 stolen bases. I want you to talk more about the dynasty side here. He's already owned in 40% of leagues. Again, player who's not going to see everyday playing time. Really interesting blend of power and speed to start the season. I think we all know from his prospect days what he can offer and how good of a fielder he can be, and the type of player that could be the everyday center fielder, and why they were able to move on from Kevin Kiermaier is because they had a guy like Josh Lowe ready to go.
I love Josh Lowe. I loved him as a prospect, but the thing is that he can't hit lefties like at all.
Mhm.
Like it's bad. So he's going to get platooned. And in a division like the American League East, especially, I mean, now that we're in that new schedule where it's not as impactful, it used to be pretty important. Like the American League East was rolling out lefty after lefty, so he probably wouldn't even be playing. But now with this more balanced schedule, I think he becomes a little bit more viable. And he's like all these other Rays players that I think they're better in like leagues where you can make daily changes because
Yeah.
weekly lineups can get kind of unless you're really good at planning ahead, where it's good on you if you are one of those managers and whatnot. But yeah, I think he's the power and speed has been fantastic. He was someone who in redraft leagues I love getting him like late in the draft because I was like, there's nothing but upside here, and if he's terrible. And it's just an easy drop, but the dynasty value has really gone through the roof because he definitely had a lot of prospect fatigue and he had that terrible first showing in the majors. So it's great to see the value bounce back because this guy who could probably, I'm not going to say 30 home runs, but like 25 home runs, 20 stolen bases is definitely well within the cards for him if he gets, plays against a bunch of plays against a bunch of righties and everything. So I love Josh Lowe. I can't emphasize that enough. Him and James Outman were like two of my guys this year that I was going after and getting. And I
Yeah.
feel like I've been doing pretty all right in those leagues that I got those two.
Speaking of James Outman, I want to pat myself on the back because I had to tear myself down the past few episodes. I picked up James Outman right off the waivers, 10-man league, beginning of the season. Man, has that been great. Reese, I don't know if you know from previous episodes, but I dropped Sean Murphy early in the season, which is my teardown moment. Do you have a
Ooh.
player or players that you want to share with us that you dropped too early, or you a player that you picked up that you want to brag about?
Well, I definitely picked up James Outman in a redraft league, and that's been doing well. Um, I don't know if I dropped anybody too early yet because I feel like there's just so much. I dropped Brady Singer, but that's because, like I mentioned
That's
in
fine.
the mailbag, he's
Yeah.
not been good. He's been very bad. So I'll take a little victory lap on dropping him early and then watching him just implode. But no, I don't think there's anybody that I've picked up yet that besides James Outman. I don't think I've dropped anybody that's really come back to bite me. I have a question though. Sean Murphy, what was the what was the decision to
Yeah.
what was it for? Like was it a guy coming off the IL or was it like something where you were just like, I think this is a better catcher here because I think he's pretty good with a couple weeks that he gets hot.
So what happened was I drafted him, and in a 10-man league, you can kind of find catchers
Oh yeah.
somewhat easily. So he wasn't playing. Like he was playing on occasion when Travis d'Arnaud was healthy. So I was in a spot where I needed points to try to win that particular week. Logan O'Hoppe was available and playing well. I saw how much time he was playing, and I just wanted at bats. So I pick up O'Hoppe, drop Murphy. Travis d'Arnaud concussion, Murphy starts playing all the time. So it's going to be interesting what happens when d'Arnaud comes back because Murphy's playing time was a concern when
Yeah.
they were both healthy. And in a 10-man league, I can afford to do something like that. Wish I didn't now, but it is what it is. Ohapi's on the IL. If you have not noticed that yet, anyone listening out there, um, Jonah Heim's a player to pick up. That's exactly what I did, and we talked about that on Friday's show. When the weekend, we said pick up Jonah Heim. He's played well this weekend against Oakland. Not a bad player. Let's go on to the last two waiver wire pickups. AJ Puck owned in 10% of leagues. The Marlins closer, and he was a good player in Oakland. A lot of people did not realize it because he was with the Oakland Athletics, soon to be Vegas Athletics or whatever. One a 1 ERA to begin the year, 9 Ks, 4 saves, picked up a save Saturday night. It's just a matter of time before he is like the 100% bona fide closer for the Marlins. He may already be considered that. Last year they bounced around like Tanner Scott was for a while, and so coming into the year I was like a little hesitant, but they gave up JJ Bleday, who I don't think is a good player, but a player that had value, I guess. And when they brought him over, I thought that that's interesting. They're bringing over a good bullpen guy, and maybe he'll be the closer, and it's showing that so far. Sweeper fastball mix and 95 on the fastball with a 30% whiff rate this year. Anything on AJ Puck?
I'm happy to see him doing well because he was someone who I loved at the University of Florida. I thought this guy was just electric. And, he's had a bunch of injury issues in his past, and because he's pitched a lot less than I think people would realize. But 2022 with Oakland was his first healthy season
Yeah.
ever. And he pitched really, really well. And then he gets traded. And like you said, I took a shot on JJ Bleday in like some of my deeper leagues. He's no longer on the roster anymore. He's not worth it. If you can't crack that Oakland A's lineup, I worry for you. So Puck has been fantastic. I really think he should be, if he's not already, their closer. Because like they were talking about in spring training having Tanner Scott, and I was like, I like Tanner Scott more than most, but the dude does not know how to throw strikes. So like you
Yeah.
can't exactly expect him to get saves if he's not finding the strike zone. And I mean, Puck already has 4 saves.
Yeah.
Like they're letting him go. And this Marlins team's not great, but they're also not abysmal. So there's save opportunities to be had.
And the thing about it is you're not going to find a ton of closers under 10% owned that have the upside that he has, the ability that he has on a team that doesn't suck. Like,
Yeah.
okay, you can pick up some closers on some bad teams and hope to get 1 save a week. Not worth it. Go with AJ Puck. One last guy I want to talk about for you deep leaguers is Noah Davis. If you have no idea who Noah Davis is, he's a pitcher for the Rockies. And the reason why I bring him up is not because I think he's excellent. It's because he's owned in less than 1% of leagues. So if you are looking for a starting pitcher, let's say you have some injuries, poor draft, you're doing everything you can to try to find a starting pitcher. Noah Davis, 9.2 innings so far this year. That's 2 starts, 0.93 ERA, 2.51 FIP, 24.5% K rate, 66% ground ball rate to start, hovering around 45% throughout the minors on the ground ball rate. Uses a ton of pitches. He has like 5 pitches that he typically uses. Heavy sinker slider. Like I said, not a great option. Deep league, he may be worth it just to see what happens. Especially like a pitcher in Coors who has a ground ball rate that's, a plus. I like that in terms of just like if I'm going to take a risk on a complete flyer on a guy. I don't think Noah Davis is great. I think that what we've seen so far is worth a shot in a flyer in a deep league.
I would agree. I also think he's definitely someone that you really have to be very diligent about how you're using him, like when you're going to deploy him into your starting lineup, because as much as the ground ball rate's fantastic, it's still Coors, and Coors
Yeah.
is it's not for the faint of heart. And I think he's definitely someone who, because I looked up his game logs and everything, and he played 2 really good lineups away from home. He played Philadelphia and
Mhm.
Seattle. So those are 2 lineups that you don't really want to face. And he's performed well. He's striking out a guy an inning just over that, and he's not walking a lot of people either. So the whip's going to be in check. I just think if you if you use him and pick him up, just be very wary about him at home. I would almost err on the side of caution and say don't use him at home because I just feel like you're going to get your heart broken, and it's not going to ruin your week, but it could definitely hurt your week.
I like it. So if you are not great with fantasy baseball, let's say you drafted a bad team, you're already sour on your team, go play So Rare. So Rare is a fantasy baseball game that makes you the owner. It's free to play. You can just go to sorare.com and you can find it there. It's, you don't have to pay anything. Now, you can pay to get upgrades within the game. Build your own fantasy team with officially licensed digital cards, and you get to be the GM. Buy, sell, trade, construct a team, and compete to win for free prizes. And if you keep winning, you keep advancing. It's a fun game, Reese. I don't know if you've been able to play it, but if you haven't, definitely check it out. So Rare, your fantasy baseball front office. A couple of
So
streamers. Oh, sorry. Go
So I
ahead.
have got a chance to play, and I've been tailing our guy Arum's picks here. So yeah, so it's definitely worth like checking out. I know it's an ad read and everything, but yeah, definitely. So Rare is actually really really cool.
It is. It's awesome.
I'm always looking for different things in like the fantasy baseball space because it's a grind. As much as we're both podcasting about it, we both know fantasy baseball is a grind. So Rare has actually been like a really welcomed addition. And I see a bunch of people putting up their lineups, and I see them on Twitter, and I'm like, yes, I need to get more into this. But yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely think it's a fantastic product.
Fun game. A few streamers for early in the week. We're going to breeze through these before we get into dynasty discussion. Eric Lauer, who's really has to step up in that Brewers rotation, especially with the injuries that they've had. On the 25th against Detroit. I love this matchup mostly because Detroit's not great. Eric Lauer's past two outings at San Diego and at Seattle. Boom. Went 6 in one of them, went 7 and 2/3 in the other. 3 total runs surrendered, 9 Ks in those outings combined. I like Eric Lauer not only as a streamer, but you can pick him up. And if he pitches well, you may want to hold on to him for a while. Probably only available in 10-man, maybe a 12-man league if you're lucky. Griffin Canning, a name I've not thought about in so long, but he plays on the 25th as well against Oakland. If anyone listens to the show, I'm usually picking whatever pitcher pitches against Oakland. They have the worst run differential through the first X amount of games in baseball history of baseball. So again, Griffin Canning, 3.48 ERA through 2 starts. Not going to provide a ton of Ks. Solid outing seems possible. Dynasty baseball. Again, Reese did the Dynasty Baseball mailbag, buying or selling Jared Kelenich's hot start. You can find that at justbaseball.com. Reese, the floor is yours. Tell us all about the Dynasty Baseball. Update us on who we need to drop, who do we target in trades.
So I definitely want to keep you engaged. So we'll start with 2 Reds prospects that you and I have actually texted about. Carlos Jorge and Leonardo Balcazar. They are tearing it up in the lowest level of minor leagues that's going right now because we haven't started the complex leagues yet, which is the Florida, the Arizona, and the Dominican Summer League. But I think those two are definitely. Carlos Jorge had a little bit of hype last season, like towards the tail end, but I think it's really starting to materialize because you're actually going to be able to start seeing him on MILB TV, depending on who they're playing. I know the Mets affiliate at that level.
Yep.
The Pirates affiliate. The Pirates affiliate is actually like the best stream in all of minor league baseball. Now that team's not very good, but it's definitely if you have MILB TV, which I think anybody in the dynasty space should, just because it's a nice. Sometimes those games start before the major league games, so it's something nice to have on the background, whether you're procrastinating working like I normally do, or you're just wanting to watch baseball and everything because baseball's the best. But yeah, those two are definitely 2 guys that I think people should be targeting.
Tell us a little bit about Carlos Jorge and what you like about him.
Okay, Carlos Jorge. I like that there is a baseline of like batted ball that is really good, and I think that there's power, and I think there's a little touch of speed as well. I think he's also just like he's more athletic than I think he gets billed for. Like he's like don't ever take what the height and weight on Fangraphs, MILB.com because those teams they have no need to update them, but He's listed at like what 5'10", 160. I think he's a little bit more physically mature than that. And
Yeah,
he only has
yeah,
the one home run on the season, but people have to remember that the Florida State League is incredibly hard to hit home runs in because you have that marine layer above the like because on the coast for most of these, and it's just they're big ballparks. So and these guys are also at the lowest level, like so you're not expecting 30 home run seasons, but yeah, he's has a home run, he has a stolen base, he's walking quite a bit. Like he's walking 15.2% of the time. And I know it's only 46 plate appearances, but that's still worth keeping in mind that this is a guy who throughout his entire minor league career is definitely a plus walk guy. So in OBP formats, he definitely gets a big bump there. I think this is a guy who I don't know if he's a top 100 prospect coming up soon, but I think he's definitely on his way there
yeah.
because the power, the speed, and I think he's going to play shortstop, second base, maybe moves over to third base. I mean, we all know the third base position can be kind of gross, so you kind of want to hope that some of these guys start matriculating to third base because it might be the worst position in fantasy baseball.
Yeah, it's tough. It really is. I mean, it is rough. When we did the top 10 third baseman, I was like, "Oh, fun. The top 4 are awesome." Then it's like, "Oh gosh, what happened here?"
Yeah.
To speak on your height and weight, now it's wrong on Fangraphs and whatnot all the time. There's one that always cracks me up. How much do you think Felix Batista weighs?
Felix Batista. I haven't thought about Felix Batista in quite a while.
Closer
Um,
for the Orioles. Big dude, 6'4", 6'5", big dude.
I'm going to say they list him at 170 pounds.
They list him at 190. That dude is 240 plus. I guarantee it. So
Oh, he's a big boy.
yeah. All right, back to Dynasty. What do you have next for us?
Okay. Have you heard of Andrew Abbott and his
Of course,
extremely
let's talk
crazy?
about Andrew Abbott. Give us the rundown on his stats. Lefty, second round pick from Virginia, I believe. Virginia, yeah. And a couple years back for the Reds. The Reds do not have a number 4 or number 5. We just saw Levi Stout get called up and get absolutely destroyed. Limited ceiling with him to begin with. Abbott ceiling, top 100 type player in my mind. Not there yet, but tell us about Andrew Abbott.
So just to let you know how dominant he's been to start the season, he has struck out 64.3% of the batters he's faced. It's
Goofy.
nuts. It's like MLB The Show numbers. His fastball and curveball are maybe one of the best combos in all of minor league baseball, and he's right there. Like Double A, I genuinely believe that if you can handle Double A, you can handle the majors. So, or you can at least make that next jump. So I think he's really on the precipice of maybe getting called up because I mean he's these Double A hitters are nothing for him right now, and I know
Yeah.
it's only been 3 starts and 15 innings and whatnot, but pitchers, they get hurt all the time. So why are you going to waste the bullets? And the Reds they're not great, but they're also not abysmal with their pitching so far. The lineup needs a lot of work, but that's going to happen because they've got a bunch of these guys matriculating to the majors. So I definitely think Andrew Abbott is, I think he's a top 100 guy, and I really think he should be pushing like top 50. Like, I really like Gavin Stone. I would take Gavin Stone ahead of him. I would take Tanner Bibby of the Guardians. I would take Oh, I'm trying to think. There's not many pitching prospects I'd rather have than Andrew Abbott right now.
Wow. Especially those who are about to graduate or on their way to graduating, like Taj Bradley will probably graduate by midseason at this rate. And wow, I like to hear that. I can't wait to clip that and put that on Twitter and hold it against you forever in case anything ever happens. But okay, so you mentioned Brady Singer earlier. You talk about him in your mailbag. Anyone that has Brady Singer, go read the mailbag and find Reese's answer. What I want to ask is, who are some players in Dynasty that you are either willing to trade off, like it's time to move on, or just straight up or are there any like major drop candidates that are actually big names? And who are some players that you're ready to move on from?
So a player I'm definitely ready to move on from, and it sucks because I love him, is Giancarlo Stanton. He just can't stay healthy anymore.
Yeah,
Like you can't expect his legs to hold up anymore. And it's unfortunate because this is a dude who, if he ever stayed healthy, like he had that one season with the Marlins that was electric. It
yeah,
was what, like 50 something home runs? Like it was wild. He He's someone who I wouldn't drop him because I feel like you can still get something for him, but I don't think you're gonna get a premium asset anymore for Giancarlo Stanton, especially because the contact skills have definitely withered away. He's definitely become very three true outcomey. Like a
Yeah.
lot of these older Yankee like veterans, like Anthony Rizzo, all of a sudden is three true outcomey, and he wasn't like that with the Cubs. There's a little bit more contact there. I guess you play to your ballpark,
Yep.
and if you can yank the ball out of Yankee Stadium, why not? But Giancarlo Stanton's definitely a big one. I don't know if I drop Brady Singer. I mentioned that I would just kind of pick and choose my spots with him because, I mean, I don't think Brady Singer is going to be an ace. I think that ship has kind of sailed. But I do think there's still like a viable fantasy starter that's viable in any format 10, 12, 14, 16 team leagues. I just don't think he's ever going to be that SP2 Aaron Nola type, but I think a lot of people are hyping him up to be at some point in his career.
Let's talk some strategy. Just general, you can apply this across the board. If you own players in a dynasty league that play for, let's say, and I'm talking MLB players, not prospect type players, but that play for like the Tigers, that play for the Athletics, that play for teams that are rebuilding, that aren't scoring enough runs, that whatever it may be. What point do you look to trade them? What point, or do you just hold on and hope for the best? Like, I'm looking at the Tigers, and if I own like Riley Green, if I own Spencer Torkelson, like I'm concerned not only about them not playing as well as I think a lot of us hope they would have by now, and I know it's still young, they're still young and still early, but I'm worried about that team scoring runs. I'm worried about that team adding talent around them in the next couple of years. I don't want to wait that long. Do you trade those type of players? Do you hold on to them? What is your strategy for rebuilding teams?
So for rebuilding teams, it really depends on the player. Torkelson's been tough. I don't know what to gauge with him
I
because
know.
I don't know if you know, I'm a big Tigers fan, so I watch all the games and it
I
makes me
love the
miserable.
Tigers too. Yeah.
They make me miserable. But I watch Torkelson and I'm like, he looks like he's just about starting to figure it out. And I think the only problem is that we're playing fantasy baseball and we need runs, we need RBIs, and those are tough to come by on bad teams. Like you can hit as many home runs as you want, but the runs aren't and the RBIs aren't going to be there. And I think for let's say Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green, I think you hold on to them. But like if for some reason you have like a Nick Maton who's been hitting leadoff for them, which he kind of shows you how bad things are, then I mean he's fine. Nick Maton's a
Yeah,
fine.
yeah.
He's a major leaguer, I guess is the best way to put it. But he's nothing more than that.
He's a bench
Um,
option on a fine team.
yeah. But if you have those types for some reason, I think you just sell them as quickly as you can. I'm trying to think on the Tigers. There's not a reliever
Akil
there that I think
Baddoo.
really. Akil Badu, I like Badu. I genuinely think he's starting to figure it out. I mean, it sucks. I'm a big Tigers fan, like I said. So I think all these guys are starting to figure it out. So I can't get past that fan bias. Although I've gotten a lot better about it. I don't tweet about the Tigers anymore because I decided that it's not worth my time and not worth getting worked up over. But Akil Badu is definitely someone that if he has like 2 hot weeks, put him out there, trade him, move on. And if for some reason you miss on that, that's just the game of baseball. I'm trying to think for a bad team like the Athletics. I don't know if there's. I really like some of their hitters. Like I like Ryan Noda, but I wouldn't be wasting my time with him because he's not the type of player who's going to change anything. Like okay, Mason Miller, right? He just got called up. And
Yeah.
I like Mason Miller, and people are going to spend a lot of fab money on him. You're going to see a lot of people doing Twitter screenshots and everything. And I think it's fantastic. The guy can't stay healthy, but also he's on a team that is so bad that there's no run, there's no
Yeah.
what's it called?
Run
Jacob
scored.
DeGrom run, yeah, there's no run scored. Basically the Jacob DeGrom issue with the
Yeah.
Mets. But obviously Mason Miller's not that good, or he could be, but who knows? He's a mystery. But those type of players, I'm not really trying to rush out and go get. I'm not out, but have 2 hot starts, you can have. I'll trade them at top dollar. So it's kind of one of those things where it's on a case by case basis, I guess.
One thing I want to know, so I also cover the athletics at justbaseball.com, which is whew,
That sounds
something.
miserable.
Something else, man. Watching every A's game is something else. I do to myself. I volunteered to do it. I want to make that clear. Ruiz is batting leadoff now. Jordan Diaz, they just moved to the 2 hole. And Noda has played in the 2 hole as well. And that top of the lineup, actually, like, I kind of like it. Because if Ruiz gets on, Diaz is a contact hitter. and he's playing pretty well. Like it, depending on your league, like recent the 30-man league or whatever, like Jordan Diaz may actually be an option that's like decent, but let's not waste too much time talking about the A's. Is there anybody else that you want to cover, touch on before we leave today?
Well, I want to cover those Reds prospects, A, because you like the Reds, and B, I like those players a lot. I do want to mention Jackson Holiday. I know I wrote that big first year player draft article, and I'm looking like I did really well on that one because Jackson Holiday is one of the best hitters in the minor leagues right now. So among qualified players, he is ninth in WRC plus. He is 19 in single A. He's striking out 18%, walking 21%, and he's hitting, this is going to be kind of crazy, 404 batting average, 533 slug, 660, or 533 on base, 681 slug. This dude is crazy. I think he's genuinely like a top 5 prospect. And I know there was some debate between Drew Jones, and Jackson Holiday. I think Jackson Holiday has proven that he's the guy.
Awesome. Yeah. Baltimore is so interesting with all of those infield prospects. And I mean, it's a match made in heaven. They don't have the ace. They have a rotation full of 4 or 5s, maybe 3s, and Grayson Rodriguez. I'm not calling him an ace yet because he's pitched in a couple of games. Like they don't have that bona fide vet ace. They have all these prospects. Could something happen eventually? I don't know. Reese, thanks so much for joining us today. This is the Just Fantasy Baseball podcast. Make sure to follow us on Twitter. We will put out all of the articles that are being talked about in the description as well. Everyone have a great day.